All right, welcome everyone. Let us know when we're live and I'll get started. Whoever's doing that, I don't know. Good to go? All right. Are we live, Carol? Okay. Welcome. We're here for a briefing with the Blueprint. I want to first start by thanking our speaker for putting this together. She did want to be here. She wanted me to convey her full commitment to the Blueprint and the policy behind the Blueprint. She was going to be here, but speaker business comes up as it does, so she wanted me to just let you know. She's sorry she can't be here, but 100% committed to the Blueprint. We're joined by Ways and Means, and our congratulations to our new chair, and welcome, and turn it over to you for any opening comments.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It is wonderful to be here as we discuss this important subject matter. And to our education leaders and advocates who are testifying, who are in the audience, I want to thank you so much for braving the weather to join us today for this really important conversation. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future is a historic investment in our schools' education and the state's long-term success. The Blueprint made significant investments in our teachers, in early education, and in preparing all students for higher education and the workforce of tomorrow. Most importantly, it helps ensure that we meet every child in the state where they are by ensuring that all students, no matter their zip code, gets a world-class education in their school. The Ways and Means Committee and Appropriations Committee were proud to help craft, lead, and support the Blueprint, and we're proud to continue that support and guide the implementation of the Blueprint today. We're proud also of our champion, our education champion, Speaker Jocelyn Pena-Melnick, and look forward to following up with her about some of the insights of this briefing. I'm glad we're here today so we can learn more about the Blueprint and the implementation and ground ourselves in this really critical session. Thank you everyone for your time, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for your partnership.
Great, thanks for the excellent opening remarks. We do have a number of presenters today, so try to keep your comments brief and succinct to the extent that you can. And without further ado, let's get right into it. We'll start with Department of Education. We have Dr. Michael, our president, and Dr. Wright, our superintendent. Welcome, and any of your staff or team you want to bring up, please feel free. All right, Dr. Michael, Dr. Wright, great to see you.
Right. Great. Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Chair Wilkins, and distinguished members of both committees. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. The State Board and the Maryland State Department of Education serve as proud stewards of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, and we value our partnership with you and our colleagues and partners in the room and across the state. Maryland's support for public education is truly the envy of the nation. When Dr. Wright and I travel across the country and engage with other state leaders, Maryland stands out for its sustained commitment, its willingness to follow the evidence, and its focus on long-term outcomes rather than short-term fixes. This is due in large part to the partnership and collaboration of this body and the one across the street. We submitted a slide deck with recent updates. Rather than walk through each slide, we want to focus today on where we see results and where continued attention and investment are needed. Over the past 2 years, we've begun to see meaningful progress in our students' literacy and mathematics achievement. The percentage of students scoring proficient or advanced in English language arts increased from 45.3% in 2023 to 50.8% in 2025. In mathematics, proficiency increased from 21% to 26.5% over that same period. And while overall student achievement continues to rise, we are equally committed to ensuring that growth reaches every student. Since 2022, our students from families with low income have increased their ELA scores by 11 percentage points. That progress matters. And at the same time, gaps remain, and we are clear-eyed about the work still ahead. Equity is not a side goal. It is central to who we are and how we move forward. We have not seen this kind of sustained year-over-year growth in both reading and mathematics since Dr. Nancy Grasmick was state superintendent. Let me state plainly, the vision and fortitude of this General Assembly to develop, fund, and protect the blueprint has made this progress possible for Maryland's students. Further validating Maryland's momentum are the results of the National Assessment of Education Progress, or NAEP, which is the most reliable way to measure student progress across different state contexts. Maryland's 2024 NAEP results showed clear improvement compared to 22. In fourth grade, our ranking rose from 40th in the nation to 20th in reading. Our eighth graders also saw improvement compared to their peers. These increases in rank indicate that Maryland students are making progress faster than students in most other states. This progress reflects a renewed focus on the instructional core, strong teaching, high-quality instructional materials, and engaged students in classrooms across Maryland. The State Board has set a goal for Maryland to rank among the top 10 states in reading and math on the 4th and 8th grade NAEP assessments. When expectations are clear, efforts are aligned, and schools have the right supports, progress follows. We have more work to do as we seek to capitalize on the sustained statewide progress, and we look forward to continuing those efforts with the partnership of the General Assembly and the many stakeholders joining us today. With that, I'm pleased to turn it over to Superintendent Wright to speak about how MSDE is aligning its strategic plan with the blueprint and how we are building on this momentum.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. The blueprint is one of the most significant and sustained investments in education in the nation. Compared to other states, Maryland truly stands out for its commitment to its schools and its students. At MSDE, we are fully committed to the success of the blueprint. Our commitment is reflected in our new Maryland Momentum Strategic Plan. The new plan aligns all departmental goals and strategies directly to the blueprint's pillars. Our strategic plan emphasizes evidence-based strategies, targeted investments in students with the greatest needs, and preparing Maryland students for long-term economic success. It follows the blueprint structure and is organized around 5 pillars, and I'm going to briefly walk you through each pillar with our strategic plan and highlight some of the progress that we're making. So pillar 1, as you know, was around early childhood. Our goal is for every child to have access to high-quality early childhood programs. Pillar 1 has helped expand enrollment in high-quality full-day pre-K, dramatically rising from 15,559 students in 2021 to 27,058 this year. That means more than double the number of our youngest learners now have access to high-quality learning. Under Pillar 2, the strategic plan goal is for every school to have high-quality and diverse teachers and leaders. Over the past year, Maryland has made real progress in addressing the teacher shortages, cutting vacancies nearly in half. Now it is time to move from reducing the shortage to eliminating it. The $19.4 million Grow Your Own Educators Grant Program is the engine for that final push. Teacher shortages affect each of our county school districts. By empowering all 24 local school systems to build their own pipelines, we ensure that the teachers of tomorrow are the community members of today. By investing in people who live in and love our communities, we aren't just filling a vacancy for a year, we're building a career that lasts over a decade. The blueprint requires a $60,000 starting salary for all of our teachers by this fall, 26-27 school year. Pairing this competitive salary with the Grow Your Own debt-free entry makes Maryland one of the most attractive states in the nation for our new educators. Central to Pillar 2 is retaining our teachers. Educators who have access to a teacher coach have been shown to stay in the classroom longer and see increases in their students' academic growth. Since the 25 legislative session, we were able to secure philanthropic funding to pilot the use of state teacher coaches in 14 of Prince George's County's public schools. This past Friday, I had the privilege to join a pep rally with 200 first and second graders at Cooper Lane Elementary, and the one and only Testudo from the University of Maryland was there cheering everybody on. I also want to thank Sean Joseph, who's the superintendent, and Cooper Lane's Dr. Micah Pate, who certainly brought the joy and positive energy to the room. We are so excited about our academic excellence program, teacher coaches, and we hope to replicate this model across the state. Teacher coaching fits perfectly with the Blueprint's framework for system reform. Teacher coaches support Pillar 2's goal of strengthening the teacher workforce, Pillar 3's goal of expanding college and career readiness, and Pillar 4's goal of providing resources to schools that need them the most. For Pillar 3, our goal is for every student to graduate high school, college, and career ready. This year, the State Board of Education adopted a new college and career ready standard that expands access for students to participate in advanced coursework once they have met the Blueprint's goal of being college and career ready by the end of 10th grade. These post-CCR pathways are designed to be rigorous, meaningful, and aligned with the student's personal aspirations. In the fall, the State Board worked in collaboration with the AIB and the CTE Committee and adopted a joint vision for career and technical education in Maryland. Pillar 4 calls for every student to be matched with the resources they need to succeed. The community school model has now been replicated in 715 schools. This represents over 50% of all of our public schools. Nationally, 2 states are leading the way when it comes to community schools, Maryland and California. We are proud of the General Assembly's significant investment in schools with the higher rates of poverty. And the Blueprint's funding formula is working as intended. Resources flow to students who need them the most. That means additional funding is provided to serve students with disabilities, multilingual learners, and children in poverty. And finally, Pillar 5 focuses on governance and accountability. Our strategic plan goal is focused on our educational accountability system, which provides us with information on how our schools and our districts are performing. Minor amendments in our departmental bill will enable us to implement the recommendations of the Assessment and Accountability Task Force. This task force included teachers, principals, superintendents, advocates, higher education leaders, national experts, and families. This broad-based coalition worked over the past 20 months to provide us with the direction for adjusting the Maryland School Report Card. The adjustments are intended to reward schools for academic growth, increase fairness for schools serving under-resourced communities, and make schools' composite scores more easily understandable to educators and to the public. We know that accountability drives behavior. A strong accountability system is essential to changing what happens in classrooms and improving student achievement. All the work and progress I shared with you would not be possible without our amazing local superintendents across this state. They are the envy of the nation for their stability and excellent leadership. And I especially want to recognize Dr. Sonia Santelises, who is in her 10th and final year as CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools. Dr. Santelises was named the 2025 Maryland Superintendent of the Year and is now one of the 4 finalists for the prestigious 2026 National Superintendent of the Year. This honor is a testament and quality and effectiveness of Maryland school and district leaders. And now I'll turn this back over to Dr. Michael.
As we close, I want to underscore one of the most consequential elements of the Blueprint, minimum school funding. At its core, the Blueprint reshapes opportunities for young people across Maryland, especially students who have historically been furthest from opportunity. It is grounded in fiscal accountability and a clear principle: public dollars must follow students to their school. That principle requires a real shift in practice in most of our districts across the state. I want to take a moment to recognize our local superintendents and the chief financial officers and their staffs for the disciplined, often unseen work required to steward this sea change. Their leadership is translating policy into practice across the state. But funding alone is not enough. We must also confront the barriers that stand between students and success. Chronic absenteeism is one of them, and we are grateful for the partnership of this General Assembly, including legislation passed last year, that has strengthened our ability to address attendance challenges with early, coordinated, and evidence-based supports. And we must also be honest about the moment that we're in. Heightened immigration enforcement is increasing fear in our school communities. Fear does not belong in our schools. And when students do not feel safe, they cannot meet their full potential. Just yesterday, as we released graduation rates at the State Board, we saw alarming declines for multilingual learners and Hispanic students. Those data reflect outcomes from June 2025. We are concerned that recent circumstances will only compound these impacts. This moment also calls for strong partnership and leadership at the state level. Improving outcomes for multilingual learners requires sustained state investment, clear guidance, and coordinated services that go beyond what districts can do alone. To fully realize the blueprints promised, we must ensure multilingual learners receive the language, academic, and wraparound supports they need and deserve to thrive. We are grounded in the blueprint's commitment to serving all students. We will meet this moment. Distinguished committee members, thank you for your leadership in protecting and elevating public education in Maryland. Thank you for the trust you have placed in us to steward this investment and transform Maryland's public schools. And thank you for your continued commitment to Maryland students.
Thank you. And thanks to you both for your leadership and everything you're doing for our schools and to, with fidelity, implement the blueprint. We appreciate it. I think the Vice Chair has a question.
I have a, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, a comment, really a criticism, but leading to a question. We are all different types of learners. I am very much an video learner, not an audio learner. So the presentation that was provided, the 14 pages, ended up being very unhelpful to myself and other members of the committee in that nothing was gone through. I certainly do not like having slides read to me. I don't think a single member of the legislature likes that, but it was really hard to focus, take notes, and it really had no context for the data that was shared. I was trying to take notes, and I didn't know where to take the notes. And so I was left with being unsure exactly where your priorities were, between the two committees, what funding challenges, what you wanted, what you didn't want, what you wanted policy-wise or not to help with any of these things. And so I would have preferred some way of following along. And so I just wanted to offer that, but still end with that question of what are your funding and policy priorities?
We've got two of our departmental bills, actually three. The first one, obviously, is the funding for the continue the funding for what the governor's proposed. I think it's $10.8 million for our coaches in our state. We do need to expand that. Philanthropy has given us a little bit of money to start that pilot in Prince George's County, but we have a lot of schools outside of Prince George's County that could use a strong literacy coaches, so that's one. Two, we are seeking to make, as I mentioned, minor amendments to the state statute that has our accountability system embedded in it. We've been working extensively, as you heard, over the past 20 months to get this right, and that includes all stakeholders, including our Teachers Association, our principals, our superintendents, et cetera. So that's the second. And the third thing that we've been putting forward is around leadership. I think that, I mentioned that to you when I saw you the other day, that we've got a leadership problem just like we've got a teacher shortage problem. And so what we're trying to put forth is to get some seed money for mentors so that we can run a leadership academy for aspiring leaders, but that money would be then used to pay the mentor principal that's very experienced to be alongside the person who's in the cohort, and that mentor would stay with them during the cohort and then during their first year of when they were being placed as a principal. And we're looking to place those principals in our schools that have the highest poverty rates and lowest performance.
Great. And maybe, Mr. Michael, you could come by and just see the Vice Chair and maybe do a little deeper dive at some point.
I'd love that opportunity to do that. I'm happy to stop by.
Thank you. I think there's a Ways and Means question.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you both for being here. I do have a couple questions, and again, happy if we wanted to do it more from our committee structure, happy to do that as well. If we look at page 2, and you spoke about Dr. Grasmick, which she left in 2011, the NAEP data, we were doing really well. And then what happened in 2013? Do you all know what happened in 2013?
Well, there are a lot of things that have happened. We've talked about, I feel, we talked similar question last year,
Yep.
right?
Specifically Common Core.
I would say there have been a lot of things. The thing that I would draw on first is that, we had significant financial challenges in 2008-9 that resulted in the inflationary factor being removed from the Thornton Commission. So things start there, and those were things that needed to be done to balance the budget at the time. But that's the first thing, is that we saw essentially a flat line of funding for public education in many spots, and this body worked hard to rectify that. But that's when that began. We've also looked, there was, I've called policy turbulence. You've talked about changes in curriculum, changes in assessment. We had several assessments change. We had a lot of change in leadership at the state during that time. And so, we could have a long discussion, as we have one-on-one about this.
We have.
And but there are a lot of causes. The good news is, I would position, you mentioned earlier, we are, for the first time, everything is pointing in the right direction, and I'd say the stability that this body has brought the education system is a huge part of that.
And so what that leads to is page 11. And that's where I was going with that. So page 11 at the top, where we talk about the academic excellence, is we can and we must turn around Maryland's academic achievements through your statewide strategy. And I completely agree. If you look at, with Frederick County, we are 100% in on our training of our teachers for scientific-based reading. And that's a lot of work we have done because of what we've seen as some of the failures of Common Core and what we've fails whole language. And so that's why I believe Frederick County has a passion for science of reading and has really doubled down on it. And I really think that plus, and I'm still holding out on the math, those changes are what's going to drive it, as I feel like Common Core drove a lot of off the academic cliff. I think that we are starting to climb it. And my question is then, what part of the blueprint you're talking about building on the blueprint? And if we look at this chart, and if the blueprint itself is not enough for the academic excellence, what flexibility do you need? And we talked about the coaches, and to the vice chair's question, what flexibility, what streamlining do you need in the blueprint to support the academic excellent piece?
So we see very much the Academic Excellence Fund working, and the coaches, part and parcel, as Dr. Wright mentioned in her testimony, as critically aligned with pillars 2, 3, and 4 of the blueprint. So the investments in teachers and ensuring we have strong teachers, this coaching takes that just to the next level, right? And this is a relatively modest investment that really complements the deep investments around teachers in pillar 2, that complements that core instruction in literacy, leading to that 10th grade piece as we prepare students to be college and career ready. So teachers have the expertise that's needed in literacy and math. And 3, and 4, making sure that we're targeting these resources in schools that need it the most, really aligning with the focus of pillar 4. So it's less that we need changes to the blueprint, that is, this complementary piece really brings to life the full potential of the blueprint.
Right. Well, there's already significant financial investment. So if we're looking at, again, on page 12, if you're looking at the National Board Certification in Teachers, and that increase from 1,600 to 3,173, that alone is a $15 million investment from my calculations, not even counting, that's just counting the 10,000 additional salary, not counting the 7,000 if they were for low-performing schools. What metrics are you putting in place to make sure that that is effective ways of academic excellence and meeting the goals that you've provided? Because that is a significant investment.
Great question. So the first thing I'd say is that looking at long-term effectiveness and impact of National Board is something we're partnering with the AIB, who's set to come up first. I would say, on principle, investing in our teachers through National Board and ensuring that their craft is really improved, aligns deeply with our focus on ensuring that they have the right pedagogy and content knowledge around the science of reading and really the developing science of mathematics. Those two go part and parcel. So when we help retain teachers in the classroom, provide them the incentive to really go deep on their practice, we combine that with instructional coaching. We believe that that is a recipe that's going to serve our students very well.
Is there a national board certification for science of reading?
National board certification for literacy,
literacy.
and we have worked exceptionally hard to make sure that that it is aligned. We've spent
Okay.
much work with them, with our partners at the AIB. Anything you want to add there?
No, I just think that one of the things that, we're trying to ensure is that we've got an outstanding teacher in every classroom. And I think that there's a lot of research that supports that when teachers feel supported, they stay in the school, and when they don't, they don't. And so coaching is one of those job-embedded ways to provide that kind of support. Coaches are there 5 days a week. They do not have recess duty, lunch duty, assessment oversight, any of that. They're there to work with teachers and teachers only and to build their craft. And so we have found over the years, the research is replete, that coaches support teachers, teachers' craft improves, student achievement increases, and teachers stay in the classroom.
And I appreciate that, and the focus on retention and making sure that those classrooms are safe for our teachers as well. So thank you, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Delegate McCaskill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Perfect. It's nice to see you too.
Thank
You know where I'm going. Pillar one.
Yes, I already flipped the page.
Collaboration of our private community. I wasn't going to mention it, but since you all did, I just figured I'd ask. On a philanthropic note, just out of curiosity, is there any consideration that you all may be having about dedicated funding for the early childhood industry around the philanthropic trends? When I've been traveling around the country, some of the states that are doing feasibly well, we all are struggling to some degree. We have been seeing states that have that commitment. And then we see now with our scholarship freeze that literally we are in a crisis. So I'm just curious, has there been any consideration for dedicated funding for the child care community as we move forward in figuring out how to, what adjustments we need to make?
Well, typically, in the conversations that I've had, not only in this position, but in another position around philanthropy, it really depends on the philanthropist, because many of them have their own particular desires about how to invest their money. And so we've been open to anybody that approaches us, whether it's supporting our coaching model, whether it's in literacy or math. We have not yet been approached by a philanthropist who's interested in supporting early childhood, but should there be a philanthropist out there that is interested in supporting early childhood, we would most definitely be dedicating those monies to early childhood.
I will add, Delegate McCaskill, my day job, I am a philanthropist. We fund an early childhood education. When you look at private pre-K participation, our highest rates are in Baltimore City and Montgomery County, which correlate with philanthropic investments at the local level. It's not coming through MSDE, but we're seeing that the ability to access, particularly our private providers, the ability to access public pre-K, we've seen local investment and philanthropic investment that really build that infrastructure support. That is unlocking opportunity for private providers. So I'd love to have another follow-up conversation so we can look at that, but infrastructure investment for private providers is essential for them to be able to access this amazing public pre-K program that we have.
Perfect, because access seems to be part of our barrier, so maybe we can have an offline conversation to continue this conversation. But one last question, Mr. Chair, if I may. Last week, we had a meeting with, a briefing with the Interagency Commission on School Construction. And on slide 18, you don't have privy to it, but I just want to share one of their need areas, and number 4 is additional classrooms for the Blueprint pre-K. And it says if fully implemented, 200 to 500 classrooms at $1 million each would be needed. So I asked a specific question to them, and they said, well, that came from the need from the agency, assuming it's MSDE, of what the need would be for them to have additional pre-K classrooms. And I'm just curious if, thinking about Pillar 1 and collaboration with the private setting partners, because we will probably never be able to build that many classrooms, right, realistically, whether it's for land space or for fiscal purposes. And looking at the Pillar 1, that nearly 50% of new full-day seats are in private settings, and looking at what the request for their need is for these additional classrooms, can we just have some more focus on how we're going to collaborate all of our partners throughout the state for Pillar 1, so that we can fulfill some of these seats and demands for full-day pre-K 3 and 4?
Well, I think you've got an outstanding leader in our early childhood assistant superintendent, Sarah Neville Morgan. She comes with a national reputation. She's very knowledgeable about everything that's related to early childhood, and I think she's been working very hard to try and make sure that she's meeting with all the stakeholders and hearing everybody's feedback. So as we start planning what needs to happen next, she is going to be the one leading that work, and I've got a lot of confidence in her.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you guys for your wonderful presentation. I wanted to just follow up on something that the Baltimore Teachers Union has alerted us to related to national board certification. Really great to hear the increase. Wondering about, though, those folks in Baltimore City who have MOC payments that are supposed to come out of the state budget. And I believe that they instructed us that in August, you all were going to make a request to DBM for a deficiency. Wondering if that has been done for those teachers in Baltimore City.
We're getting you that answer. Just one second. This is Donna Gunning. She's the assistant superintendent and in charge of finance.
Okay,
Bring in the big guns.
welcome, Donna. Just go ahead and state your name, and you can give us the answer.
Don, your name and title.
Thank you. Donna Gunning, Chief Finance Officer at MSDE.
Welcome.
So we did ask for that deficiency for, not just for Baltimore City, there were other true-up national board certification payments that needed to be made, and the governor's allowance includes that funding.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Don.
You know, what we've seen sort of nationally with our immigrant community has been heartbreaking. I mean, there's just no words for it. And it's touching every aspect of our society. We've seen it in our enrollment figures. You've talked about it affecting graduation numbers. I think the governor has included some comp ed hold harmless for some of the enrollment. Is that right? In his budget, so that's good. What other things should we be thinking about to protect these communities, to make sure they're getting to school, getting the education they deserve, and being protected? Are there things, what are you doing to support the LEAs? What can we think about as a body here?
So we have been crafting, I'm going to refer to it as guidance for the superintendents to implement in their local school systems, and it's around how to deal with different situations, how to keep their schools safe. I even had arranged for them to meet with the Baltimore ICE director to ask the questions that were on their mind, specific to their districts. I think that as this is unfolded and we get another wave of whatever is happening, we've been pulling together a group of people who meet on a regular basis to talk about what is happening and what other kinds of information do the superintendents need to have. And so we are linking into other national organizations who are also providing a lot of information where this is concerned, and then we in turn pass that on to not only to our superintendents but also to our AGs, so that they also are aware of what is happening nationally where this is concerned.
Well, thanks for your work. Yeah, you just have to
I'd simply add, you know, I'd say this month in particular, things continue to shift. And what I want to say is, I think we had a playbook that we helped develop with you, coming with the Values Act and others from last session. The only thing I would add at this point is some of those pieces may need to be revisited. You know, in Maryland, to our knowledge, have very limited, if any, exposure of immigration enforcement, like technically on school or in school campuses. But what we do know is it's happening right down the street. It's visible from school grounds. It is happening as a part of when a parent is leaving or coming to school. I don't have, I was talking to a principal yesterday who's telling me about a young man whose father was picked up right after drop-off, or another who wouldn't eat lunch, and they asked why, and the mother was picked up at an immigration hearing the day before and taken. I don't have answers, but I am, in a spot of wanting to be in conversation with you as we revisit the tracks that we have laid over the past year. They may need to be revisited in some ways, because times are changing and shifting.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for the work you're doing. You should view, I think Chair Wilkins and I, both committees, and our speaker in this House as a partner with you in that. If there are things that you need, resources that need to be brought to bear, policies that need to be effectuated, I think we're here to work through those. It's a priority for us.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the work you're doing. Delegate Acevedo, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If Dr. Wright, you'd mentioned in your response just now about just the work that you all are doing with various school districts about handling situations where, ICE is present at schools. Can you be a little bit more specific about what are some of those solutions that you are working with local school districts on?
Well,
Does it include, for example, a soft lockdown? Can you just be a little bit more specific about what it is that and the reason why I'm asking that is because I definitely think there needs to be some more clarity around what school districts should be doing to ensure that they're protecting students. And it seems to me that, students that arrive at school are suddenly being terrorized before class even starts. I believe it was Carroll County that recently, and correct me if I'm wrong, instructed ICE agents to enter the school. This is not an environment that is conducive for learning, and so I would appreciate some specificity about what it is the State Department of Education is providing to local jurisdictions on how to handle these situations. Does it include a soft lockdown? Does it include other ideas? Can you all be a little bit more specific other than we're working with localities?
Sure. Why don't I give you the protocols that we've been working with the Maryland Center for School Safety, and they've developed a number of protocols that we have just recently put in, I think, our latest transmittal to the superintendents. So it might be helpful for you to see that level of detail. I can tell you that the Baltimore ICE director assured the superintendents that there would be nobody in their schools. And one of the safety people that was on the call at the time said, well, then can you also prevent them from staging if they're going to apprehend somebody using our school property as staging? And her response at the time was, I wasn't aware they were staging on the school property, and assured us that the staging part of it would not take place on school property either. So I've let the superintendents know that if they are having an issue, let me know so that I can lift this up. Because if it's happening one place, it's probably happening more than another. But I do think it would be helpful if I shared with you all the documents and all the protocols and all the outlines and information, that would be a level of specificity that I think is what you're
If you
looking
can get
for.
that to the full committee, we'll disseminate it around.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I'd
Yeah.
appreciate it. And just one quick follow-up. A good bit of what our education system does, must include community engagement. I'm just curious, in the past few months when we've been seeing what we're seeing at schools all across this state, is the Department of Education, is someone on your team engaging with the community, listening on how the school system administrators can respond, or what the communities would like to see from their school districts and administrators? Is that something, you or members of your team have done in the past few months?
We've got a great team that works on this under the Assistant Superintendent's leadership of Mary Gable. And so when we sometimes get emails directly from community members or directly from principals asking those kinds of questions, and Mary's team is the one that responds to all of those things. So, but I've got to say, I trust the superintendents because their districts, their schools, and I would not want to tell them how to work in one district or another. That's really up to them. But I think they've got a real pulse on their communities and knowing what's going on. But all anybody has to do is reach out to us, and we can certainly help to the extent that we've got people to do that. We're more than happy to do that.
Can we follow up on that?
Why don't we also ask Pazam when they come up later to address this question as well? I think it's important right now, given the times we're in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for you both being with us.
Thank you.
I want to welcome our Speaker Pro Tem is with us. Speaker Pro Tem, thanks for being here. Appreciate you.
Delegate Pastor.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have certainly enjoyed working with you, Superintendent Wright, in the past with your literacy program. But, and that's a scary three-letter word, isn't it? So let me say it again. But here's my concern, and my concern, since we are talking about blueprint and trying to pull all of these things together so we can make intelligent decisions about where we want to go in terms of budget and where we want to go in terms of what we're putting out for our young people. And I fall on somebody's sword, not mine, because I could see this coming when I sat on the original funding committee for Blueprint, that some of this was going to come back and haunt us. One, that we did, and I want to start here, that we did not work with our paras. We didn't even mention them initially, so now we're doing that with Grow Your Own, which certainly has its own funding pot. But we didn't see, so I really want to understand, not just from you, but today as we go along, how we pull all of this together where we are now, because not only do we have to handle, and let me throw a question in, isn't this correct, that we don't just have to handle where we are in terms of blueprint deficits, but we also have to handle that in a minute, in a life minute, you're going to have to be, you being MSDE, handle some of the areas that you've not had to handle before that because it came down from the federal level, the United States Department of Education. So I want to hear something very specific, because everything you said was wonderful and it was on point, and you looked at each of the pillars. So now what we didn't anticipate, isn't this correct, that we did not count on the number of teachers who were going to take the exam, and we said you can come out of the classroom and you'd be mentors, et cetera. So what do we do now to bridge? Because I have so many questions. What are we going to do that's concrete, that's going to bridge where we are in terms of our gaps now? Because the literacy program is great. We went over it, I think, 4 times. So it's there. But what are we going to do to bridge the gap in terms of the blueprint so that we can keep blueprint? Because Dr. Thornton said we don't want it to go the way of Thornton. Isn't that correct? But what are we going to do to bridge these gaps so it does not, so that we don't pause pieces that are out there for Tier 2 teachers? Are we going to have to go back, or should we not go back and rethink this? Because we can't lament this, because Tier 4 about matching students, they are first and foremost. How do we fix this concrete? How do you see MSDE working with us for real and this budget so we're not hurting those for which blueprint, here's my real question, those for which blueprint was designed in the first place, which is the children? Because I keep seeing pieces pulled out constantly and us backing up. I don't want to see us. What do we do so we don't end up in that space between Dr. Grasmick and you? Because you have some good things. What are we going to do?
So there's a lot there.
Yes, sir, but I asked questions through each
Yes.
one of them.
I think the answer in part lies in how this thing was built.
How-
right? How the blueprint was built. So this is not a series of reforms that were pulled off of, boilerplate policy shelves, right? This was intentionally designed, and one piece connects to the other, right? We talked a little bit about that with teachers and where they're placed. So what I would say is that we can't look at one specific policy piece because they really impact each other. And that's why it was designed the way it was. And the people over here to my left, spent, particularly Rachel Heiss and Rick Kerwin, really designing this thing. So I think what is clear, one, there's an evaluation coming up at the end of this year that will really look comprehensively. So a lot of the work starts in examining a comprehensive review of it. The second is we're going to have to work very closely together. And I might offer that's a place where this Department of Education and State Board will stand in a potentially different posture than those in the past have. That is, we are intending to roll up our sleeves when this body is ready and others to look at things that may need to be adjusted. We have a deep partnership with our partners at the AIB. We meet monthly with them for at least 2 hours in person. And we have an MOU that you may be aware of. These relationships and partnership are going to be critical. And so conversations as we move forward, I think, are how we're going to solve some of the problems you've raised and many others, and doing so keeping young people at the center of our decision making. It's not going to be easy. We must work together as we look at potential changes in the future. Let me finally say that the signals we've received is we're very focused this year on continuing what's in place, and that's very encouraging. Like I said, the support from the General Assembly around the blueprint allows us to continue to stay focused in the year ahead, and we greatly appreciate that support.
And if I just may throw in, because Rachel, I was almost scared of Rachel Heiss, but just almost, but she stayed on point while we were doing this. But what you kept saying was, well, maybe you didn't use the word communicate, but coming together. Mm-hmm. And that has to be now, that where we are at this point has to be about coming back to the table. Those who were the practitioners
That's right.
and the voices then. We have to do that now, not next year or the year after that, because we will be, as the delegate said, having the same conversation. And if I, as an English teacher, may just close by saying, it will be a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate. We will now go to Delegate Patterson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I represent a district that's very concerned about funding, so I have a question regarding Pillar 2. On slide 11, can you offer details about how the funding for the Academic Excellence Program will be covered? And is that, in fact, will the funds be taken from the LEA's blueprint, or will there be an additional ask for funding?
So this is, go ahead. This is a general allocation. It's included in the governor's budget outside of the blueprint fund. So it's a general allocation. So independent from taking funds away, these are additional funds to support local schools.
How do you link national board certification, NBCs, with actual improvements in student outcomes? Is there something that we can look at or you've addressed?
Great.
To offer the linkage, yes.
No, I think that that's part of what's going to be coming through with the evaluation that's being done. So I think that obviously we've been keeping track of where our national board certified teachers are and where they aren't. And there's not as many of them as, actually, to be honest with you, as we would like. And we need more national board certified teachers in our lowest performing schools. So that's one of the things that we are trying to take a look at as well, and also to match that against, if schools have a large number of national board certified teachers, are we seeing any change in student achievement?
All right, I'll be looking forward to it.
There is a strong evidence base around National Board Certified Teachers, and so that very much drove the decision-making. I expect my colleagues will touch on this as well. It is still very early for us to be
Yes.
tying that to Maryland
Correct.
student achievement
Correct.
at this time.
Thank you.
Delegate Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Michael, Dr. Wright, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for your leadership, especially the leadership when it comes to reading and seeing that progress. Dr. Wright, we know that that's something that we were really excited about, that you would bring to the table coming to Maryland, and we're already seeing those results. My question really speaks to the relationship between AIB and the State Board and MSDE. As you know, under the blueprint, there's a lot of different responsibilities and within the pillars, and there's been some overlap with regard to who had what responsibility. I know you all have been talking about kind of how to work together on that. Can you just give us a high level on some of the progress on those conversations?
Yeah, thank you for that. A lot. As Dr. Michael mentioned, you know, we meet with the AIB leadership once a month for 2 hours. It's a jointly assembled agenda, and it's sometimes we have these tough conversations, and that's all part of, I think, working together professionally. I think that one of the things that we've tried to do, because if the field has been confused, I think at times, like, well, is this something that AIB is responsible for? Is this something that the board is responsible for, or the department is responsible for? So what we sat down and worked with AIB to match literally item by item that came from the blueprint and the statute in the blueprint as to who was going to take the lead, who was going to be responsible for consulting, et cetera. So you will see a document, and we can give that to you, the chairs. Is a document that's very specific around by pillar, by responsibility, and by statute. So you will be able to see very clearly, and we made sure that the field had that as well, so that everybody knew exactly when if they were having a certain issue inside a pillar, exactly who to contact for that. So I think that's helped a lot in terms of clarity, which is what you were trying to get at too, I think.
Absolutely. Just thank you all for that work and that collaboration. We need that. It's going to have a positive impact moving forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and seeing no other questions from my colleagues, we will move forward with the next panel, which thank you for the great transition, Delegate, because next up is the Accountability and Implementation Board. I'm very pleased to call up my former county executive, friend and mentor, Ike Isaiah Leggett, Chair of the Accountability and Implementation Board, as well as Dr. William Britt Kerwin, Vice Chair of the AIB, as well as our good friend Rachel Heiss, Executive Director. Thank you. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Let me first of all congratulate all of the newer members who are part of these two committees. Chairman Barnes, Vice Chair Kaiser, congratulations. She happens to represent the best district in the entire state of Maryland. Yeah. Chair Wilkins, thank you for the introduction, and congratulations as well. I'm here with my colleagues, Britt Curran and Rachel Heiss. We will go through much of what we have to present in a disjointed order to some degree, because a lot of what we wanted to say have already been covered, and don't want to waste your time with repeating some of the same things. I'm going to go to slide 2, just as a reminder for us of why we're here and what you stated and provided this legislation to begin with. That is, that we're responsible here for the implementation of the blueprint with fidelity to achieve the goals that you have decided we needed to achieve. This is the responsibility outlined in legislation by the General Assembly, which is that all students, regardless of their zip code or their individual circumstances or characteristics, have access to a world-class education, and that they are college and are career ready by the end of the 10th grade, no later than the high school graduation. Let me repeat that. That they are college and career ready by the end of the 10th grade and no later than high school graduation. I'm going to turn back to my colleague, Dr. Curran, to just go through briefly what the commission found in trying to address that particular question. Britt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The commission was charged by the governor and the General Assembly in 2012 as the best school systems in the world. With that rather daunting charge, we had to first ask, where are our schools now? And it was not a pretty picture. For example, we learned that on national assessments, the NAEP exam, as it's called, Maryland students ranked in the 40s among all states in 4th and 8th grade reading and math proficiency. Only 40% of children were coming to kindergarten ready to learn. Only 30% of third graders were reading on grade level. Think about that. Only 30%. Only 33% of high school grads were deemed college and career ready. We also learned that Maryland was regressive in school funding, in that it was significantly underfunding schools serving high concentrations of poverty. Clearly, at that time, our schools were not serving the needs of our children or our state. The commission did a deep dive on the policies and practices of the world's best performing school systems that enable them to achieve their high academic performance and funding equity. And we adapted these policies and practices to the Maryland context. These became the 5 pillars of the blueprint as adopted by the General Assembly in 2021. So these 5 pillars represent a distillation of the policies and practices that make school systems successful on a global level. And as I say, the commission recommended made these recommendations to the General Assembly, and the General Assembly acted upon them, creating the blueprint in 2021. And we are now, of course, in the 4th year of its implementation.
Thank you. There are a couple of things I want to cover at this point. It goes back to the question of collaboration. That had been an issue, I think, for some time. I think to some degree that it was somewhat overstated. We now have a superintendent who I think is a world-class superintendent who has been aggressive, efficient, and effective in implementing the blueprint and stands above many others throughout this nation, Dr. Wright. In our collaboration with Dr. Wright and Dr. Michael, we have had extremely good working relationship. As stated earlier, I'm going to confirm, we meet monthly. We talk consistently. We've been placed in a memorandum of understanding that would outline all of the responsibilities so that there's no overlap or duplication. Now, there are some things that I think we do need to, in fact, address. One, given the diversity of our state, there's been this challenge with one size fits all. And I think when I met with you last year, I stated to you that we needed to address some of the concerns, especially of some of the smaller jurisdictions. We've developed a waiver process. I am delighted with the progress that we've made, for example, with Carroll County, whereby we went through the entire process in a way that I think made the citizens of Carroll County proud and have that working relationship. We have an ongoing understanding that I think is clear for all to see. I want to talk about one size fits all. Here's a challenge. Let me give you an illustration of what I'm talking about. In our progress conference, we had before us Kent County, and we were talking about their ability to respond to the challenges we had with appropriate school funding, minimum school funding. And as the superintendent explained the challenge that she had to make decisions potentially in mid-year, that they had to move personnel around, and she was talking in terms of percentages. And it sounded rather daunting when she talked about it. So finally I asked her a question, well, how many people are you actually talking about? She said 2. And I'm looking at her and I said, 2. Here we are with a huge staff, tons of people, addressing a challenge that addresses only 2 or 3 people. One size fits all, and the process that we have should not utilize that amount of time to address that question. So one of the things that we need is more flexibility so that we are not in some way even addressing the question of one size fits all. It will be eliminated. The other challenge that we need is modest appropriation. I would say modest, to deal with some of the challenges that they have through some direct grants and additional resources for support. But more importantly, we need you to affirm consistently the value of the blueprint and why we need it and the progress that we're making. It was eloquently stated at the debate last year. I heard it live when I heard Delegate Barnes talk so eloquently about not stopping and that we needed to continue because we were making progress. We need to hear that from everyone. And here's why, because we are in fact making progress. Go to the next slide here. If you look, for example, at what has been achieved just thus far, 53% of the 3 and 4-year-olds are enrolled in full-day pre-K. A 302% increase in the teachers earning national board certification.
Read from that one,
Okay.
not from.
Okay. All right. 70% of the increase in 3 and 4-year-olds enrolled in full pre-K. A 400% increase of teachers earning and maintaining national board certification. Increase in 53% increase in students of dual enrolled for the year 23-24, representing a 10% of all of our high school students. There's a 100% increase in the community schools statewide. And we had a 100% percentage of the LEAs participated in the progress monitoring so that we can look very deeply into all of those concerns. Now we'll go to slide 7. There are a number of accomplishments that you need to look at in terms of your individual jurisdictions and what has happened around the state, because you can get confused by all these numbers in some form or fashion without looking specifically at what is happening on the ground. For example, Prince George's County Public Schools have ensured that a pre-K seat for all eligible Tier 1 students. Cecil and Charles County, eligible Tier 1 students have a spot to enroll. Nearly 50% of the full-day seats are in private settings, and that's because of the work of systems like Hartford County Schools, where all pre-K programs have achieved Excel Level 5 accreditation. Currently, Baltimore City Public Schools has 300 teachers pursuing national board certification, and 70% of their new hires are teachers of color. Carroll County has the highest number of percentage of principals and assistant principals. The increased rate for teachers' retention in several LEAs included Caroline and Garrett County, and the outcomes of strong district support for new programs and partnerships. With regards to the students who meet the college and career ready programs standards, this year we have 231 industry recognized credentials approved for students, and we have 373 career counselors. Now, all of those things are wonderful, but the bottom line for us is that we need to see performance in response to what Delegate Barnes stated before. We are making improvements. We are seeing improvements. We can't get lost in the statistics of those things that allow us to make it. We have to actually show that and demonstrate that. So we're not concerned solely by these numbers of things that we're doing. We are looking clearly at the big picture. Let me go through a couple of things before I know the time is short, because I don't want to hold up too much of this before I want to get to respond to your question. More than, this is the last slide here, I'm going to, more than half of the LEAs are close to achieving the minimum school funding requirements, including Allegheny, Anne Arundel, Colford, Cecil, Charles, Dorchester, Frederick, Howard, Montgomery County, St. Mary's, Talbot, Washington, and Wycomico. This is an improvement. This is where we should be. And we need your support and commitment to get us there. We can't turn back from this. I use the example, and many of you probably heard it before, and I'm going to state it again. It reminds me of the swimmer who wanted to swim the English Channel from France to Great Britain. 26 miles across. Trained, prepared, did all the right things in preparation to get across. On the big day of the swim, the swimmer actually got 13 miles, generally halfway across. And someone looked at him in the water and said, you know, the waters are challenging going forward. You can't make it. Why don't you turn around and swim back? He turned around and swam back. The essence was, he actually swam 26 miles, but he never got across. When you look at what we are doing here, think about what this General Assembly and others have done around the state. We have gone 26 miles or more, but we've never gotten across. We had Thornton, we had all kinds of local initiatives, we had all kinds of debates that have gone back and forth for years. But in some fashion, we tend to turn around and swim back. We may swim slower, we may swim differently, and the waves may be a little bit tough at times, but please do not swim back the other direction. It is too important for our kids, it's too important for the state, and we cannot go back to the numbers that Dr. Curran just stated. We have to get across. You see the progress, you see the collaboration, we need to get there. And I'm believing strongly that once you see and understand the role that this plays, we have the commitment to do so. I'm going to stop there because I know that our time is short. Any closing comments for Dr. Curran before we stop? Rachel, want to add? Yeah. Thank you.
Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for the presentation and for the great work that the AIB has been doing. My question's in regards to public outreach. I know both committees really appreciate getting these kinds of updates, and I periodically watch the presentations to the State Board of Education. I'm just wondering, is this information that we're hearing today also being shared with the general public so they also know the progress of the blueprint? During your presentation, I was multitasking and took a look at the AIB's website, and I didn't see information like this that shows kind of the progress that we're seeing year to date. I'm just wondering if that's the type of thing that you are sharing publicly or could.
Address that for us.
Yes, that is absolutely on our website, and we can help you find it there. But we have both the one-pager that, what we call the one-pager that the chair was reading from. Hopefully you all have copies of that, but if not, we have copies for you. It is posted on our website, as well as a series of data dashboards that show progress on the metrics that the AIB and in many cases jointly with the State Board have adopted, metrics to measure progress. And then also in another section of the website, it shows the sort of takes a deeper dive into some of the data that the chair was just speaking of around the various pillars. So we have all of that on the website. We are working to, we did just redesign it, and we are working to share that information out more regularly. We've started sending out an update twice a month to our email list, which I think is over 1,000, but we obviously would like to grow that. And we're also, open to any suggestions that you all have about outreach. We have an outreach and communications coordinator director who did all the fine work on our website redesign and some of the resources that we're providing for you all. So any suggestions or events or things that you think we could lean in on, we're happy to hear about that. And I do also want to let you know that the one-pager that we shared it's a statewide overview of progress. We are developing a similar one-pager for each of the 24 LEAs, and those will be done in the coming weeks. And we're going to post them on the website, but we're also going to share them with each of you, with the counties that you represent, so that you have that information.
Delegate Pelagovich-Carr has a follow-up if we can give her access. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, I apologize. It turns out I was looking at MSDE's website, so maybe I'll just take a look at the folks who are still sitting in the room. You do have a lot of information on your website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also thank you to the panel. This is really important. Many people know I have 2 children in Baltimore City Public Schools, and I was pleased to hear my colleague's question because it was related. We made those investments in you having the appropriate staff to help with the outreach and the communications. I definitely think that the number of people subscribed to your listserv probably signifies that mainly insiders are following you, and I think the greatest thing that AIB could be doing is really maybe doing a roadshow of sorts, going to LEAs and making it clear. I think Chair Leggett made a really important point about swimming 13 miles only to turn around, and essentially you did 26 miles, but you hustled backwards, right? And so one of the things that I often share, I even shared it this morning with high school students that came to visit my office, we've only been implementing Blueprint for 4 years, and some of those years were during kind of, immediate post-COVID reality, right? And so oftentimes, the public narrative about the quality of public schools is almost uniformly focused on high school outcomes. And what I mentioned to many people is, if someone's a high school senior, or in high school at all, they did not receive much of the Blueprint in terms of their education, right? So we're seeing really encouraging outcomes with our earliest learners who will eventually be able to inherit those investments that are being built upon in every successive year. But if we are evaluating something based on high school outcomes when the majority of their education was not being supplemented and supported by the targeted investments of the Blueprint, I don't know how often I hear leaders really unpack that, because even people that are highly critical, when I suggest that they're evaluating something that hasn't even halfway happened to some students, it's only been like a quarter of their educational journey, they tend to be stumped because they hadn't considered that. This was not phased in. This was something that we gave access to for all, but everyone wasn't going to get as much of it in their journey. And I think there's more opportunity, perhaps with the investments we've made and the staff around communications, to make that clear, because the conversations in the public square are very much about, well, look what that 12th grader did, even though they only got a couple years of Blueprint, and not about all of the great momentum we're seeing with our youngest learners. So I just wanted to submit that as a consideration for your public messaging.
We actually have been talking about sort of, you call it a roadshow, getting out to the LEAs and sharing the story, both of the Blueprint statewide, but also in each county, because there aren't a lot of voices doing that. And I would just say our Outreach and Communications Director, Arshia Sethi Snowden, is here. Please, obviously she heard that, she'll hear all of these things, but please feel free to reach out with any thoughts, suggestions, events, materials that you'd like, all of the above. Thank you.
Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I had a couple questions. One of the things when we met with our local Board of Ed, they were very clear about a lack of ability now to innovate. And Frederick County has always been innovative, particularly around our career and college readiness. And again, it's not like they have been really adhering to the science of reading. So those type of innovations, they are full force on. So have you had conversations about why school systems may feel like they aren't able to innovate? And are you looking at ways to make the blueprint more flexible to innovate? And I want to just give you an example. So if we are looking at page 9 on your slide under Pillar 3, is that 140 students in the registered apprenticeship program statewide?
Yeah, yes, and sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with the, with the slides, but yeah, yes. So there are, it's not a huge number of students in registered apprenticeship yet. These are like formal, approved,
Right.
rigorous registered apprenticeships that meet the blueprint's requirements. We have a number of students in other, what are called youth apprenticeships, which don't necessarily meet the rigor of the blueprint.
And we spent a lot of time working on those youth apprenticeships. And so is there a disconnect between the youth apprenticeship piece and the blueprint apprenticeship? And do we need to make steps to integrate those or change those to allow for those pathways? One of those things being around possibly credentialing and micro-credentialing and making those credentials stackable so that you have a core that you achieve, and those core standards or certifications could then be used to go multiple pathways in career development, because like even just OSHA standards, right? There's all kinds, even computer certifications, there are all kinds of certifications. So just that example, are we so prescriptive that we are stifling innovation? And if we are, to the good delegate's point, my friend, how are we going to fix that? And are we looking to fix that? You have an interim report that's coming up, and you have been working together, and I do appreciate the culture now of working together, because I think that's what has to happen. But are you going to make real recommendations to fix these problems? And are there things that you can start fixing that we don't have to change the law, that just by talking to and listening to our school systems?
Well, first of all, I think I mentioned that we want more flexibility, and we do not have it. I think that the challenge here is to make certain that we meet certain conditions, and there may be some pathways for us to address that. So we're open anyway to be more creative, to make it easier and more flexible for local jurisdictions to provide the kind of creativity. The blueprint was not designed to do that. It was designed to have certain standards, and given the flexibility that we are seeking, it may be possible for us to do those kinds of things. But we're always open for those ideas and suggestions.
And that's what we need to see. So to your point about swimming, it's not necessarily that we're interested in going back, but maybe there's a dock with a speedboat next to it, and we're taking a different route to get there, or we're taking a faster route or another route. So we need to start making the changes that are going to allow for that.
I think if you go back and look at our record, virtually every area where we've had an opportunity to be flexible, we provided that flexibility.
Right. So are you guys out of being what do we need to do to help you?
That's the first thing I stated.
Yes.
I want more
Yes.
flexibility.
Yes.
Delegate Miller, on the CTE question, which was very well put, within the last 6 weeks, we had a coming together involving Senator Rosa Pepp, who's been, of course, a big champion of these apprenticeship programs, with MSDE, AIB, the Department of Labor, and the CETE committee, all met over 4 or 5 meetings, and we developed a vision statement for what the CTE should be. And now there is a group at work developing an implementation plan to meet what's called for in the vision. We need to get that to you to let you see how much activity and I think how much progress is being made on this really important issue.
Very important. So thank you. I appreciate the information.
Delegate McCaskill.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, you know where I'm going again. Pillar 1. I was looking at your slide 7, around nearly 50% of new full-day seats are in private settings, and I got really, really excited. And then I went to your dashboard that I actually got excited about again, because it gives us a wonderful breakdown, county by county, and an overall look. And so I love the big picture. However, in looking at the dashboard and looking at the slide, the 50%, can you give me a breakdown of how many providers, family child care providers, is in that private setting when it says 50%? How many seats went to the private setting for family child care?
I get that information to you. The 50% statistic is of new full-day seats, so it's not of all full-day seats. So I think, that's the nuance there. But it does show that we're making progress as Blueprint implementation is progressing, that more private providers are participating, and a greater proportion of the new seats are being offered by private providers. So that's what we were trying to convey with that data point, but we can certainly get you the specific information.
I would like that, because looking at Pillar 1, we see that there's a 10% at least, and then we add on 10% each time,
Each year.
right, to get up to the 50%. So when speaking to other folks, they told me, we're already at the 50%, we made the mark, looking at what you all have presented to us. However, when we take a deeper dive, we see that's not the case, right?
Right.
And so I'm always looking, and I'm glad we have all these folks in the room, because I am relentless about Pillar 1. I love it. I love the collaboration. But what's misleading is that 50%, went a full day seats, went to the private setting, right? And then we start looking at these numbers, we see that really that's 136 in Baltimore County, for instance, when I'm looking at it. So I just would like to have a better breakdown of those enrollments and where those students actually went, and how many specifically went to family child care. Because I'm always looking for an innovative way, because I do actually look at the numbers. They do concern me. And so I'm always looking for an innovative way to include the family child care setting, so that we can be a part of these movements and fulfilling these seats.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give it to the committee, we'll
Absolutely.
disseminate it. Delegate Metzger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, folks, for being here. And Mr. Leggett, I talk in car terms. I sold cars for 27 years. So I'm looking at a product. We have a Rolls-Royce product with a Cadillac price tag. What I'm asking, or what I'm trying to say is, wouldn't it be better to get the entire product, but stretch the payments out some? The flexibility you're talking about and moving back, would it be better just to stretch it out some, that you're buying the whole product, you're getting everything you want, it's just taking longer to pay for it? I've said it for 5 years now.
I think that's a question that this body needs to have. I think there may be some challenges going forward. As you know, I served as a county executive, and I understand the budgetary process fairly well. And I'm not going to suggest to you precisely what that number should be, but I think there could be some flexibility in terms of timing. That's why I stated earlier, we need to have that commitment. With that commitment comes the possibility of making adjustments. But I'm not going to suggest how and what those adjustments should be made today. Right now, my job is to tell you we need to have this with fidelity and to move forward as the most efficient, effective way possible. But I'm not going to tell you that there could not and should not be adjustments along the line.
Well, I appreciate that, because we've made a commitment and we're into this.
Right.
And I'm like you, I don't want to go backwards. We need to move forward. But the best way to go forward, and I think you would agree, as my colleague, Delegate Pasteur, talked earlier, we've got to figure out and have this conversation, and we've got to be open and honest,
Right.
and put everything on the table, ladies and gentlemen, that Dr. Wright, for her being the leading in this state for the school, we need to give her the tools that she needs, and we need to do it with flexibility in our finances. Thank you.
Thank you. I've stated, and I want to make sure that you understand this, because someone asked me about a statement that I made in reference to your point about flexibility and changes and difficulties. I recognize the difficulties financially within the state. I recognize the challenges of our students, and I recognize the challenges that our local superintendents and boards of education are making. And if I was in my former role, and you presented to me the blueprint as is, I probably would have objected and had some serious question that, can I do this within the time frame? Can we afford to do this? How do we find ways in which to work? If a local official will not act in that way, that's almost irresponsible, because this is a large document, very complex, very costly, and you need to ask those questions.
Right.
Now, once those questions are asked, we need to get on board and move forward. And I think we've shown progress. We are acting in coordination. We are suggesting we need to make changes. We want more flexibility to address one size fits all. Then we need to get behind the wheel and move forward. And that's what I'm suggesting.
You're absolutely right. We're the gatekeepers of the people's money, so we need to do it wisely and do it the best way. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And to that end, this year, there is money in the Blueprint Fund for full funding of the Blueprint. Is that right?
Yes.
We, in fact, finished this budget with a $130 million-ish surplus in the Blueprint Fund. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And this is a great question from Delegate Metzger, and this is why we've intentionally set up, at this 4 to 5 year mark, this audit in November. Is that right?
That's correct.
And where are we with the audit, Ms. Heiss? Have we selected a vendor yet? Where is that?
Yes, we do. We've selected a vendor. They're called NORC, and they have been on the job for 8-9 months now.
Excellent.
And they are, in fact, out in the field now in our LEAs, both for surveys, and also there will be visits to each LEA. And the draft report, their draft evaluation, I think they start giving us drafts in early fall, and we'll have the final evaluation, their report in December, and then the AIB has to submit to you all and the governor the recommendations of the board based on the outcomes of the evaluation in January.
So that will be to us by next session for our consideration.
Yes.
And it sounds like it's going to be fairly comprehensive, which is great, and give us the tools that we need, as Delegate Metzger has mentioned, to evaluate the blueprint. Where have the successes been? Where do we still need improvements for this body to consider? And I know we will do that. So thank you. Looks like I've prompted another question in all my talking. Delegate Greist.
Can you tell us a little bit about NORC? I just did a real quick Google search. It looks like they're a nonprofit from the University of Chicago. Is that correct?
Yes, and they are, particularly their area of expertise is in system change, and specifically looking at sort of the more complex program evaluation that has multiple, where you're trying to change the whole system through a series of actions rather than sort of like a single program, which is a little more simpler to evaluate. So they have a lot of expertise in looking at systems change and evaluating the various inputs and how they are contributing or not contributing to a change in the entire system and a change in the outcomes. Happy to share more information with you about NORC.
Delegate Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And colleagues, I don't have a question. I just want, and I appreciate your indulgence, Madam Chair. There are some students here, as we are talking about the blueprint, from Mr. Pro Tem, the greatest school in the state of Maryland, Baltimore City College. We have students here from students organizing a multicultural and open society. They just walked in. I just wanted to recognize them. On a snow day, they have spent their day down here in Annapolis. So if we could just welcome them. They're over here in the gallery, folks.
Thank you so much, Delegate Young, and welcome to our students. We'll now go to Delegate Ebersol.
And thank you all for being here. This might have been a question for the last panel, but I think it's for this one too. And several people have already delved into this. We're going to have this audit, this report. And most people will turn to test scores. We heard a lot of NAEP talk at the beginning, but that's not all we do to evaluate schools, right? We don't look at scores. So I didn't know if you wanted to go a little deeper into what some of the metrics will be that we'll use to judge our progress, or if you felt like you'd covered that already.
briefly, outcomes, as expressed in assessment scores are important, but they are not the only thing. And I think earlier today, there was a statement about, how much time, the ability to, for the results to be present in the assessment data yet. And so part of the evaluation is looking at the inputs and input measures and sort of what LEAs are doing to pursue the policies, the changes that are necessary to then result in changes in student performance. And so that valuation includes both of those things, looking at the process kind of inputs, and then also the outcomes to the degree that it's reasonable to expect that.
Let's see any other questions. Thanks, all three of you, to your lifelong commitment to public service and to public education. Thanks for being with us. Let's move forward with, I think we now have Maryland Association of Boards of Education, Brenda Wolf, Jennifer Mallow, Sam Mathias. Given time constraints, we're going to ask everyone to sort of keep to about 2 minutes if you can. Just get to the point, and we'll obviously still have time for questions.
I'm just waiting for the technical difficulties. I'm going to skip that slide because for time. Oh, great. There we go. Well, thank you, Chair Barnes, Chair Wilkins, Vice Chairs, and members of the Appropriations and Ways and Means Committee. My name is Sam Mathias. I'm the Legal and Policy Director for the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. With me today are Brenda Wolf, Vice Chair of the Montgomery County Board of Ed, and Jennifer Swickard Mallow, Chair of the Howard County Board of Education. I'm going to skip through here, and I'm grateful to share this time with Dr. Wright, Dr. Michael, the AIB, and presenters who follow. When it comes to detailed implementation data, I think MSDE and AIB are the experts. They are the ones best positioned to walk through that work with precision. MABE's role is different. What we bring is a local board governance perspective grounded in very different community contexts across the state, and from that lens, I want to frame two simple questions. First, what are we trying to do with the blueprint? And second, are we accomplishing it? What we're trying to do is build a world-class education system with world-class outcomes by replacing a historically uneven and opaque statewide set of school systems with one that is equitable, transparent, and accountable so that student success is not determined by geography or circumstance. And as the AIB alluded to this just now a little bit, are we accomplishing that? Partially, yes. We're seeing very strong alignment on inputs and structure, but it's still early in implementation and in some cases administratively constrained to conclude we're fully achieving the intended outcomes. Right now, much of what we're measuring and calling success are inputs, as was just mentioned. How many teachers are nationally board certified? That's an input. How many enrolled students in pre-K? Also an input. How many more community schools we have? These are all great, fantastic things, still an input. And with that in mind, I was hoping to turn it over to my colleagues here, board leaders, to share some of their successes and bring it back very quickly at the end. So I'll send it over to Brenda.
Good afternoon, Chairs Wilkins and Barnes, and members of the Ways and Means and Appropriations Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about Montgomery County Public Schools. Over the past 4 years, MCPS has fully woven the blueprint into how we plan, operate, and support our schools. Simply put, it has helped us expand opportunity, better support our students with the greatest needs, and raise expectations across the system. We are seeing measurable results. That work starts early by expanding full-day pre-kindergarten. More 4-year-olds are entering school with the academic and social foundations they need to succeed. We have also strengthened partnerships with community-based child care providers, giving families more choice and helping reduce child care costs. We've made major innovations in our educators as well. MCPS now has 935 board-certified teachers, the most in the state. We raised our starting teacher salary above $60,000, 2 years ahead of the state deadline, and we're working closely with MCEA, our Teacher Employee Association, to build career pathways. Across the county, our 77 community schools are helping students meet academic, social, emotional, and basic needs. Through more than 75 community partnerships, schools provide tutoring, after-school programs, and access to food, clothing, and other essential supports. All of this is paying off. The MCPS class of 2024 graduated at a rate of 91.8%. Over the past year, students participated in more than 46,000 career advising sessions, and enrollment continues to grow in AP, IB, dual enrollment, and CTE programs, especially among historically underrepresented students. We continue to work closely with the Accountability and Implementation Board and MSDE to stay aligned with blueprint requirements. While we are meeting all reporting expectations, implementation costs, particularly for pre-kindergarten expansion and dual enrollment, often exceed state funding. As enrollment trends shift, we respectfully ask for consideration of hold harmless provisions to ensure funding stability. At the end of the day, our goal is simple. Every MCPS student should graduate with real choices, whether college, career, or both. The blueprint is helping us get there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Wilkins, Barnes, and committee members. I am Jennifer Swickard Mello, Chair of the Board of Education of Howard County and Chair of MABE's Legislative Committee. Next. The Howard County Public School System, HCPSS, is leading the state in all LEAs in industry-recognized credentials, a key measurement of CTE successes. Last year, our industry-recognized credentials grew by roughly 22% of graduating seniors from the previous year to an all-time high of 1,764 compared to the previous year. One of the reasons that we have such success is because we have 11 of our CTE academies embedded in each of our 13 high schools. This allows for greater participation outside these programs exclusively housed in our Applied Research Laboratory. The primary challenge in CTE right now is that we have an annual wait list of approximately 150 to 200 students and need to add physical infrastructure without corresponding blueprint capital dollars. Next slide. In dual enrollment, we have increased enrollment by 11% over the previous year. Most notable, though, is the 20% increase in enrollment for students receiving free and reduced meals, and a 15 to 20% enrollment for African American and Hispanic students enrolled in these programs. These increases are attributed to Howard County's decision to cover all student tuition for dual enrollment, rather than the threshold set by the blueprint of College and Career Ready. In order to achieve the intent of the blueprint to improve education for previously underserved groups, we have found that tuition must be covered for all. Next slide. HCPSS has the most registered apprenticeships in the state, approximately half of all registered apprenticeships at 103. Every single one of those 103 apprenticeships are either registered apprenticeships or an apprenticeship with an industry-recognized credential. We are the only local education agency where this is the case. Next slide. This school year, we have converted all remaining pre-kindergarten classrooms from full day to half day. This has been an incremental process over many years. Subsequently, HCPSS has used most of the available classroom space. This leaves us without sufficient space to grow the program substantially, particularly for meeting the needs of 3-year-olds. Additionally, a significant challenge comes with funding, as the maintenance of effort calculation, or MOE, does not include any pre-K students. There is not local funding to match what is coming from the state for pre-K. Specifically, the formula that has 39% of pre-K funding coming from the state leaves 61% of the funding to be allocated from local sources. None of HCPSS's 1,400 plus students are covered in the MOE calculations, which is then compounded by declining enrollment at HCPSS, like most jurisdictions in the state. While we acknowledge there are many challenges that remain, Howard County is very proud of these successes and that we have achieved on behalf of our students. And as a representative of MAVE, we look forward to working with the legislature to find ways to remove barriers and enhance outcomes for students as school boards strive to meet the goals of the blueprint.
And I'm just going to try to bring it all together very quickly. So thank you both to Brenda and Jen for grounding us in a conversation about the local experience, what boards are seeing on the ground as real wins and challenges related to the blueprint. And with that framing, I want to zoom out again to share what we see as the blueprint's greatest success, which is not any one pillar or program, but that ethos embedded in the law, reinforced by the General Assembly and carried forward through implementation, which is an education system grounded in equity and transparency. And we think the most concrete example of that is community schools, where that is a concrete example of that ethos working well. Community schools succeed because they are grounded in local needs assessments. Every community school looks different. Schools are working alongside principals, families, health providers, and community partners to identify the specific barriers that students face in that community, in that school, and addressing those things that actually get in the way of student success. In some communities, that might be food insecurity. In others, it's transportation, physical, behavioral, mental health services, or some combination of all of the above. And because the needs differ, the responses at the community school levels are able to differ. So the blueprint law provides this really flexible framework, and requiring where the law has created a framework and the community is able to determine the solution. And the blueprint has done an excellent job of guiding us where resources should go with that equity framework. But some areas, particularly minimum school funding, and you heard this a little bit with Chair Leggett and the AIB, particularly minimum school funding and accounting requirements, the blueprint has lost the plot a little bit. That may be something you've heard. The intent is right. The intent is equity. But the way it is operationalized has created extraordinary inefficiencies. District might, for example, purchase a single math curriculum and implement it system-wide, but because of the minimum school funding requirements, systems are spending enormous amounts of time, personnel, and resources disaggregating and fractionally attributing cost of that system-wide math curriculum to every single school. They're doing that with things like groundskeeping, with snow plowing probably this week. And if any of you all were to sit on a weekly CFO meeting where senior financial officers from every school system meet with senior financial officers from MSDE and with AIB, what you would see was a very thoughtful and very good faith collaboration, but they're conversations that are not about how to use resources to drive student outcomes. They're conversations about how to account for decisions that are already made to be equitable in a way that, but account for those in a way that satisfies reporting rules. So that accounting requirement is not changing any behavior at this point. And that level of granularity, distributing out entries for all of these little things combined with limited flexibility to account for differences is pulling attention and resources away from what matters most, which is ultimately not the inputs, which are very important, but ultimately improving those student outcomes. And so in closing, the blueprint got our values right. It gives Maryland a transparent, equity-driven framework for funding public education. Our next steps should be about flexibility and making it workable and sustainable so that we don't undermine the very commitments we all agree matter most. And if the General Assembly would like the blueprint to succeed long-term, this minimum school funding issue is one of the most practical, immediate places to help. And so thank you so much for allowing us to present today.
Thanks. Thanks for your testimony. Do you see a question here from Delegate Shetty?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your presentation and for your work on the ground with our educators. I just want to make a quick comment. I see it from both ends as an adjunct faculty member at Montgomery College. I've had the privilege of having maybe like 15 dually enrolled students across 3 years, just fully integrated into my college classroom. And it's been really incredible seeing how well they do. And it's in large part because of the support that MCPS has provided to these students. So I really love seeing that. On the younger end, as the parent of a fourth grader at North Chevy Chase, I'm really grateful to see all the many supports that our teachers and paras are getting from the blueprint. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about some of the work, maybe Ms. Wolf or others can share a little bit about the work you're doing to support students with special needs.
That's the primary focus of the boards this year. As you know, and I'm sure everyone here knows, that is an area that our students have not been very successful. We actually need more special ed resource teachers. We're adding them to the budget this year, in fact, quite a number. It actually came up that we probably are being very ambitious with the number that we have picked because we probably can't find that many. But it is a highlight for this budget year to increase that number to help the special needs students, as well as we have, a problem with our EML students also. So we're working on that issue also. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that we are extremely grateful for the support that my son gets through the special ed program. He has an IEP and has always been blessed to have really incredible resource teachers who have been able to support him through many gains in MAP testing because of that type of intensive small group work that you all do through the W&M program. And I love that students across the spectrum, both from like those that need a little extra support to those that need a little extra challenge, get support through W&M. And I think it's in large part because of the collaborative work that you all do, and grateful to see some positive movement in that. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, seeing no other questions, we thank you for being our eyes and ears on the ground as we implement Blueprint, and also for the helpful feedback you provided today. So we're looking forward to the follow-up and continued collaboration. Moving on to our next panel, we will bring up the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland, Dr. Miriam Rogers, Superintendent of Baltimore County Public Schools, and Mary Pat Fannin, the Executive Director of Public School Superintendents Association.
Just reading the TAC directions.
Yep, I will. Okay. And just as you're getting settled in, I just want to let you know the Subcommittee for Health has another briefing, so they're going to be moving out. So thanks for being with us. And
good afternoon, Chair Wilkins, Chair Barnes, Vice Chairs and members of the committees. I am Miriam Rogers, Superintendent of Baltimore County Public Schools and President-elect of PZAM. I'll spend just a very few minutes grounding this conversation in what Blueprint implementation looks like on the ground in the third largest school system in Maryland. The blueprint sets a very clear vision, and it's focused on improving student success. What matters now is that our vision translates into day-to-day practice in districts. Baltimore County is not unique. However, I will share a small bit of our story to illustrate what's happening across our school systems. This year, as a direct result, every student group across all levels demonstrated improved proficiency in math and language arts. We've seen academic achievement and progress improve in our elementary and middle schools, gains in English proficiency, in science, as well as school quality across all levels. As a result, in just 2 years, we've increased the higher-rated schools, the 4-star schools, by more than 80%, and we now have the highest number of 5-star schools in the state of Maryland for the second year in a row. These results did not happen by accident. They happened based on targeted investments that we made when the funding was available. We have expanded special education supports, multilingual learner services, professional development for all of our staff, mental health support, while addressing aging facilities and safety needs. This reflects the kind of intentional resource decisions that the blueprint envisioned. At the same time, it's very important to understand the budget reality. Like every school system in Maryland, Baltimore County Public Schools spends between 80 and 89% of our budget on salaries and benefits. In the case of school systems like ours with aging infrastructure, plant operations cost more. That means that flexibility is limited, even before we talk about new initiatives. Enrollment has declined in 23 of the 24 school systems in Maryland, including Baltimore County. As enrollment declines, the cost of wages and benefits increases. The gap between the additional revenue that the school systems are scheduled to receive and the cost for compensation is real, and it is something that all school systems are grappling with. Over the past 5 years, costs have risen sharply across the state of Maryland, specifically in the areas of special education, transportation, healthcare, and utilities. These increases significantly outpace inflation and per pupil funding growth. Even with these pressures, Baltimore County Public Schools has made historic investments in staff programs and student supports. You'll see on one side of the slide the amount of new spending since going back to 2020. We have drastically reduced the amount of new spending for this upcoming fiscal year in the proposal that is made to our board. You will see a reduction of nearly 74% of new spending, with new spending only being allocated for academic achievement and infrastructure. This slide shows that school systems, including Baltimore County Public Schools, have had to make reductions to continue to move forward with the blueprint and the state of our fiscal realities. These tough decisions for us largely occurred in changes in central office, contractual spending, contractual staff. In the first year, we eliminated many vacant positions before we moved to fill positions, and reducing built-in costs. These are not easy decisions, but they reflect the constraints that school systems are operating under. From the school system perspective, stability matters. Ensuring that no system loses funding for students in poverty or multilingual learners is critical. The continuation of the community eligibility program provision helps to preserve fairness while required analyses are completed. With that context, I'll turn it over to Mary Pat to connect the school system.
Good afternoon. I'm going to just make 2 points today, so I'm going to fly through some of the slides here. The first, I want to give you some information on special education. So we all know that special education is hugely critical, and not just a legal mandate, but a moral imperative that we serve these children. But you need to look at the spending. Over the entire state, we spend $1 billion over what we receive from state and federal revenues. That means that money is coming out of our local share, and any sense of flexibility is really, there is no flexibility between this and some of our school construction constraints. So it's important. And you have this deck, and you can click on the link to see what your school system's special education overage. But it really is the untold story of education funding and what is the massive challenge in the blueprint. The other thing I want to talk about is what has changed under the blueprint. So 3 transformational shifts are happening under the blueprint. We've got unparalleled transparency and accountability. We've got school-based budgeting and reporting. Every month, the CFOs are updating school-level expenditure data into the Power School, and you can print out, or you can look at, school-by-school data. This could never happen prior to the blueprint. Only Prince George's County Public Schools and city schools could produce this type of transparency. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting very close to being a public dashboard that is easy for everyone to understand. The other really important issue is the main tenet of the blueprint was to move resources where they're most needed. So how do you do that? You do that by creating systems like this. This is a new tiered staffing model that Anne Arundel County Public Schools has implemented in the last 2 years. A lot of school systems had similar models and are really beefing them up, or they're creating models just like this. And this is showing that you're putting the teachers and the resources into the classes and to the schools where poverty is the highest. And just to show you, this is a draft of what Anne Arundel County Public Schools is giving to their board every month. So by school, you would see what is budgeted for that school, where it's going, and how close they are to meeting that goal. And that's what you all wanted to see. So we want to share that, and thank you for your support. And if you have a chance, there's lots of resources inside the presentation for statewide successes for your districts in particular as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Speaker Pro Tem has a question.
Hi, first time here in this committee. You pointed out that enrollments are dropping generally. Can you speak more to that and why you see that happening?
Yes, thank you for that question. In Baltimore County, when we've been investigating the issue, we found a few things are true at the same time. For the last 10 years, I don't think many of us were following, but birth rates were declining in the last 10 years. So we have 30,000 fewer school-age children now. That's at the same time that we have not recovered from pre-COVID numbers. There's out-migration out of the county as well as out of the state. Those are some of the reasons that we're seeing enrollment numbers not bounce back, and a larger number of families opting into homeschooling since COVID.
That's actually doubled. The homeschooling numbers have doubled since COVID.
And so that's what you're seeing statewide as well as just in Baltimore County?
Yep.
Thank
There
you.
are also some declines that we think are correlated to immigration issues, but we can't make direct conclusions yet.
Thank you. Thank you, chairs.
Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, chairs. So at the outset, you started off by talking about the lack of flexibility in special education spending. And I don't want to pop your cork, but do you have a solution there? I mean, are you suggesting something that we could do to ameliorate that?
Yes. So last year, if you remember, we came up with a lot of recommendations for some adjustments to the blueprint, and one of them was about special ed, and you accepted it, and you were doing a study. The departments and AIB are doing a special education study, and one of the issues is about tiered special education, so that you're not just giving one flat number for special education needs, that you're really addressing speech pathology with one number, and a child with high complex medical needs, appropriately funding that person. So really trying to differentiate that. The other thing that would be really useful is to be able to use some of the career ladder incentives to incentivize the places where we really need them, which is to get people into special education. So we have a lot of teachers who might have a special education certification, but they're back in the classroom because it can be, it's a hard position to be in. Dr. Rogers in Baltimore County has done an amazing job that, they're giving people more time, more flexibility to do their IEPs and things like that. But you need some space, you need some money flexibility and some guardrails to be lessened a little bit to do all of that across the state.
Thank you. It's nice to see you there, my favorite superintendent.
Good to see you.
I thought you meant me.
I think that was mine.
I don't see any other questions. Thanks for all your hard work, your service to the state. Have a great day. MSEA, Paul Lemley, Dr. Woodward, Sean Johnson, and why don't we go ahead and have BTU come on up as well, Christina Evans. Okay, you up. Good to see you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for recognizing 75,000 educators as a partner in this briefing. My name is Paul Lemley. I'm a National Board Certified Government and Law teacher from Howard County. I serve as president of the Maryland State Education Association, the largest labor union in Maryland. I'm joined by our vice president, Dr. Nikki Woodward. She's a special educator from Montgomery County, specializing in early intervention for infants and toddlers. Also with me, MSEA's executive director, Sean Johnson. The 2026 legislative session is a pivotal moment for elected officials and your unionized educators. We intend to protect the progress that we've made. We do not intend to allow instability and federal chaos to undermine it. Our blueprint advocacy is pretty simple. We think public education works best when we trust educators, keep our promises to the almost 90% of our kids that are in schools in Maryland, and we play the long game of funding our commitments. To tell you who we are, Dr. Woodward.
Good afternoon, all. MSEA's members include teachers, education support professionals, counselors, administrators, higher education faculty, retirees, and students who are actually preparing to become educators. We are representing, he said 75, but it's actually 76,000 educators across the 23 of 24 of Maryland school districts, and we have 44 local associations. From bus stop to classroom, from cafeteria to counselors, offices, our members support students at every step. We see the impact of policy in real time.
President Lemley, in just a second, will speak through specifically to some of the elements of the blueprint before we obviously wrap our presentation. But for some of you, if this is new to this committee work, we wanted to introduce ourselves in the context of being a labor union. My name is Sean Johnson. As President Lemley said, I've had the great pleasure of working with many of you for the better part of the last 16 years in this role at MSEA. Well, varying roles at MSEA, but certainly with the State Education Association. Our local affiliates serve as recognized bargaining representatives in contract negotiations with local boards of education. We negotiate contracts that improve wages, benefits, working conditions, and learning conditions. Many of those contracts also touch on issues like staffing levels, housing, planning time, etc. Strong collective bargaining improves outcomes for students, educators, and communities. Teachers earn 24% more, and education support professionals 7% more in states with collective bargaining, helping with recruitment and retention challenges. Maryland's progress is also underpinned by the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, an educator voice helping shape those investments. Our advocacy and is member-driven, and our approach to issues is one with a problem-solver mentality. We know better policy and better results come when educators are part of the solution. Paul.
The committee's asked us things we wanted to celebrate, as well as items that require attention and action. I'll begin by recognizing what's working, because there's real progress to celebrate. The Blueprint is improving schools across the state by leading with an equity focus. This means providing critical resources for students who need the most help. This includes significant increases in pre-K seats, dual enrollment and career technology education, and most significantly, the expansion of community schools with critical wraparound services that they bring to families. I strongly believe that we need to look beyond test scores to know how our schools are doing, but we've also seen widespread increases in reading and math scores, just as we did in the early years of Thornton funding before the Great Recession curtailed investments in our schools. Also, we've seen the Blueprint increase educator pay and establish career ladders to create pathways for career advancement without leaving the classroom. That's significant for our efforts to recruit and retain great teachers. We've seen a 50% drop in vacancies and an increase in the last year alone of national board certified teachers by 40%. We initiated, we had the most national board teachers achieve last year of any state in the country. These investments are paying dividends, and they're fragile if we don't protect them. While the underlying Blueprint costs for fiscal '27 are stable, the forecast for the remainder of the implementation of the Blueprint requires a renewed commitment at the state and local level. Additionally, an effort made last year to alleviate the cost curve jeopardizes a critical part of the Blueprint related to time to do the job. We must ensure that the pause created last year in collaborative time does not last beyond the fiscal '28 promise made last year. The career ladder requires more flexibility. National board certification is valuable, and as I said, expanding. We need alternate pathways, especially in fields without a national board option. And if we want classroom leaders to look more like the students they're teaching, we need to find more ways to diversify the NBC applicant pool. Finally, accountability is a major pillar of the Blueprint. Unfortunately, in many cases, with so many oversight entities, the State Board, the AIB, the General Assembly, the reports can be duplicative and create crushing workload in school and central offices across the state. Streamlining is possible and necessary. Nikki.
Educators have long warned against the damage caused by an over-reliance on standardized testing. It makes school more about test taking, test prep, and taking time away from engaging instruction to do well on an assessment that most students feel very little incentive to actually succeed on. Understanding school performance requires us beyond crude measures like standardized test scores and star ratings. And Maryland has real progress by expanding school quality indicators, such as our school climate surveys and access to a well-rounded curriculum. And protecting instructional time, thanks to the work of this General Assembly in passing the Protect Our Schools Act of 2017. Student growth is a fairer measure, but guardrails must remain in place to prevent a return to narrowing curriculum, increased stress, and the loss of joy in learning. This year, MSDE will introduce a bill making improvements to the accountability system. The guardrails and balance in this system are important to protecting a well-rounded and engaging school experience for students and providing parents with real transparency and insight into their child's schools. MSEA is ready to be a partner and a resource in this conversation about how any changes will play out in our classrooms.
As we conclude, Chairman Barnes, you noted at one of the early presentations, what are some other issues that these committees may have jurisdiction over. The rest of our presentation has slides, including our 2026 legislative priorities that speak to some of those things related to opportunities to stand against vouchers that could be coming before the Ways and Means Committee, issues related to protecting vulnerable students and communities, some that were raised, and appreciate Dr. Michael and other remarks earlier today about the need to really provide guidance and support around immigration-related issues that are impacting our schools. One particular note related to the U.S. Department of Education. To Delegate Ebersol's question, and Ms. Fanning gave a wonderful answer for what are some specific state-related things related to special education. But I just need to lift this up. The federal government obligation on special education is supposed to be 40%, and it is not getting to 20%. The reason those gaps exist, as Pazam showed in their chart, is in part because the federal government is not doing their part. So I realize changing the minds of a significant number of 535 people is not exactly the purview of the General Assembly, but addressing that issue is an incredibly significant one. And how you all, or we as a state, work on backfilling cuts to the U.S. Department of Education is a challenge confronting all of us. We also will be, before your committees, talking about workers' rights initiatives, specifically related to education support professionals, the non-teachers, non-administrators in our school buildings who make them run, make them function, make them possible learning and working conditions for everyone in them. We have an ESP Bill of Rights agenda that I hope you will avail yourself to. But Paul, I'll have you wrap us up.
And I'll be brief. We're ready to partner with you to protect Maryland's future, and we're here for questions if you have them. They'll do it themselves.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Wilkins, Chair Barnes, and members of the committees. My name's Christina Duncan Evans. I'm the Teacher Chapter Chair of the Baltimore Teachers Union. It's briefing day in Annapolis, but it is Wear It Wednesday in city schools, and so I'm in my BTU yellow. I know some folks here are former BTU members, and so you should join us in celebrating Wear It Wednesday. I'll get you your BTU shirt if you'll just let me know your size. So I did just want to provide context for folks who might be new, although I don't see a lot of new faces, that Baltimore City Public Schools employees, certificated, and our PSRP chapter are not represented by MSEA. We are represented by the American Federation of Teachers. And so I sit here before you representing the over 9,000 employees of city schools, including teachers, counselors, school librarians, of which I was one, paraprofessionals, school secretaries, and a whole host of other job classifications. I want to provide a quick update to the slides that were submitted in advance, which is that we did receive more information from MSDE about the maintenance of certificate payments that were alluded to earlier. There is a supplemental request in the budget this year for about $6.6 million to address maintenance of certificate payments to educators in 3 counties, ours as well as Montgomery County and I believe St. Mary's County. One thing I'd like to address is that our negotiations for level 4 of the career pathways have concluded successfully with no arbitration, which is a big step for our district. And we are very happy to have reached an agreement where we are protecting level 4 educators from being pulled into staffing shortages and substituting, because one of the things that has often been an issue for folks who are at higher, levels of the career ladder is because they have a little bit more scheduling flexibility throughout the day, they often get pulled into subbing. I don't think it was anyone's intention on the Kerwin Commission to create $150,000 substitute teachers. And the expertise and the knowledge of level 4 teachers is really desperately needed to be shared and to support educators who are perhaps early career, educators who are struggling, and to meet student needs. our intention was really to protect the intention and the time of Level 4 educators, and we were able to successfully come to consensus with our district around that issue. One of the things I'd like to also point out is that our Level 3 educators have moved into positions this year, and in Baltimore City, we actually have a lot more experience with career pathways than some of the other jurisdictions in the state. We started with a career pathway system in 2010. One of the things that we know to be true is that at the end of 14 years of our former career pathway system, only 24 educators were in the top rung. And so from our experience, I would like to caution the importance of implementation if we really want robust teacher support and student support in the top levels. It's really easy to build a ladder. It's just as easy to create barriers that keep people from getting to the top rungs. And so we think that in order to really maximize the impact of Level 3 and Level 4 educators, we need to see thorough and comprehensive and long-lasting investment, and we are so thankful and so appreciative of the work of the House of Delegates to make sure that Blueprint funding has been maintained. This funding means a lot for our community schools, it means a lot for the expansions of college and career readiness, and we really see the impact of the Blueprint on a day-to-day basis. I know that I'm last here, so I would just say that we continue to, it's okay, I've been bouncing around. I would say that our education system really is an ecosystem, and we continue, if we're gonna build strong pipelines, we need more recognition for everyone who's not in the Blueprint, because when a kid comes to school, they don't know who's certificated or non-certificated, but they do know who their special person is. They do know who the person is who puts them back on track when they're having a rough day. And the Blueprint really does look at instruction, community schools, and supports for students at Promise. We need more attention paid to our education support professionals, our para-educators, because the work that they do in schools is absolutely incredible. And in city schools, we also tend to see some of the more extreme situations in the state, which I think makes us an important canary in the coal mine, so to speak, because what we are seeing, perhaps in the most recent weeks, is if it can be done to one group of people, it can be done to everybody. Everybody will find themselves in the position of the marginalized when things get really bad. So with that being said, we really appreciate the opportunity to provide an update, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, thank all of you for your advocacy for your members, but also what gets lost often is your advocacy for our children, our students in the state. Really appreciate you all. Delegate Acevedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for just being partners in this work. My question is more specific to teacher planning time. This is something that I've heard from teachers in my district often, is the fact that there is very little planning time, before instruction, during the day, and the kind of impact that has on, teacher burnout, but also, school instruction. I often reference the National Council on Teacher, I think it was Quality, and there is a study that they had done around the correlation between a lack of sufficient teacher planning time and teacher burnout. And so I guess what I'm curious to know, because I'm hearing it from my constituents and so on, where do we stand, where does Maryland stand compared to our neighboring jurisdictions on teacher planning time? How much is afforded in Virginia? How much, because this is important when we're talking about not just hiring, but retaining teachers. There's nothing stopping a teacher from going to Virginia, going to DC, where there may be more teacher planning time, more salary, et cetera, right? And those experienced teachers we need at farm schools, from what I'm hearing from a lot of folks. So where do we compare to our neighboring jurisdictions on teacher planning time?
Not enough, Delegate, not enough. If you couldn't hear that, not enough planning time. So what you may be aware of from your seats in the General Assembly is that the blueprint intends to fund what we call collaborative time in the future. And what the delegate's referring to is often a feature of our collective bargaining agreements called planning time. But either way, time is time. And you need staffing to make that happen. Here's why. If I'm a government teacher, and so are my colleagues, we cannot collaborate, we cannot share lessons because we have to offer government at every period in the day. If we're elementary teachers, and I think some of us are, we cannot collaborate because the way our schedules work, it's the same thing. Those small people, they have to go somewhere, and so there's very limited time to do the job. You've probably, many of you have heard me say it, if I teach 150 students, and I have frequently, just looking at their work 2 minutes each, it takes 6 hours that week, if I give them 2 minutes each. So from our perspective, the most important thing is to provide the ability for us to plan for great instruction and then to give critical feedback to those students after great instruction. And your job is really to fund collaborative time in the future so that those boards of education can offer it in our schedules. Is there anything you want to say specific for BTU?
Yeah, I think that more than once I've run into a misperception that collaborative time is chit-chat over a water cooler, and that's really not the case at all. We're talking about data-driven meetings where we're talking about students, we're talking about individual time with students, and the students who benefit most from increased teacher collaborative time are special education students. Teachers need additional time to meet the needs of the diverse learners in their classrooms. Classrooms are now more inclusive than ever, and differentiation based on student needs is a huge challenge for educators. It can be done, but it is labor intensive, and that is where that time is going.
And it was a feature of the most high-performing school systems that Dr. Kerwin referenced.
Delegate Harrison?
Ms. Duncan Evans, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for highlighting those professionals in the schools who are not directly in the blueprint. I think that we have gotten so lost in some of this that we have forgotten that there are other people who touch the lives of children. And that's really what this is all about. And so I just really wanted to say thank you for highlighting that. That really struck me. And I think it's Lemel?
Lemley.
Lemon? Anyway, I'm sorry, I missed it. But I also wanted to say thank you for bringing up the fact that, you know, we have gotten so focused on teaching to a test that we're not teaching to learn. And that goes back to our children once again. We do want to ensure that, that we're meeting metrics that are set however they're set. But in all of this, we have continued to get lost in the fact that everyone learns differently, or many people learn differently, and we need to be able to reach those children where they are so that teaching can continue, so that learning actually takes place. So repeating, I should say, continue so that learning takes place, so that all children have an opportunity. And I just really wanted to say thank you for highlighting that for, you know, the world who's listening to hear these things. Thank you.
I just wanted to add.
Hang on one second. There you go.
I just wanted to add one more aspect to that, and thank you for that, is that a part of that collaboration time that was that they now spoke to, we have to really think about the fact that parents are a significant part of this. I'm an infant toddler practitioner because what I learned starting off as a high school teacher and going backwards, which almost never happens, is that the most critical component of this work, and that we'll never get better at, is that if we don't include our parents in this. And so that need of collaboration time, I don't care if you've got a 6-month-old who has Down syndrome, or you have a 12th grader who has generalized anxiety and needs support, parents should be included in that. And if educators don't have the time to be able to communicate and uplift and bring parents in to be true partners in this work, we won't ever have success.
Thank you so much, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here, and thank you for especially the last statement. Couldn't agree more. Just two things real quick. I know it's been a long day. Could you get us a list of, as far as if you're talking federal percentage of special education? To my knowledge, other than the outlier of the stimulus, it's never been funded at 40%. If you could get us the historical perspective so that we can see if there is going to be some kind of advocating for that. And then two, if you're talking about collaborative time, and we are talking about going to the 60-40, and I completely understand the demands on our teachers right now, especially our special education teachers, absolutely needs to be streamlined. We need to take a look at what's going in our classroom, particularly our special education classrooms, as far as our teachers and even injuries to teachers and from students or students to other students. So things that are going on in our classrooms, very, very impactful. But so my question is about collaborative time, and we can talk offline, or you can give me another answer. Who's teaching the kids for the 40% of the time? One of the most effective things in student learning is the teacher in the classroom. So agree with a lot of what you're saying, but then who's teaching those students the 40%?
Yeah, if I was short when I answered it before, I didn't mean to be. Another teacher, right? The idea of what the delegate's referring to is that an individual teacher would teach for 60% of their day, and they would collaborate, plan, do the other things for 40% of their day. And so it is a staffing pressure, right? Mm-hmm. It's that student goes to their English class, they go to their math class, and the teachers that are not directly working with that student have the time to do the things that make education great. And I've failed to say to Delegate Acevero that I can do a little research on other states. I think Maryland may be a little bit ahead in terms of planning time, but that's my impression, and I'll ask my peers to get you, we'll share some more information. But in short, it's a staffing question. And scheduling, definitely, and it's very different.
Scheduling, and it looks very different in very different schools, and the size of the schools, and what staff they have. And if you're talking about minimum school funding, I would be very interested to have a conversation about the minimum school funding issues that are brought up, because some schools are just literally not going to have the extra teachers or the extra staff. There are some that are and some that aren't. So we are going to be in trying to work and reach toward that work. We are going to be creating some more significant challenge. So happy to have more of that discussion.
If I could just add, in my own experience, I finished my career in the classroom as a school library media specialist in an elementary school. And so one way that this works currently is that resource teachers, library media specialists, music, fine arts, computer science, are often, or other non-academic subjects are often in the schedule instructing students during collaborative time for teachers. Another way this can look increasingly in Baltimore City is we have departmentalized elementary schools increasingly, where students will go to one teacher for their reading and social studies, and they'll go to another teacher for their math and science, and that movement creates a schedule that's a little bit more like a secondary schedule, but it can be done. And we're talking about using the existing kind of structures to expand access to non-student facing time.
And I would just add to what Ms. Duncan-Zevin said about this. It's actually an amazing opportunity for our learners, especially our young learners, that ability to get up and move and not be in the same stagnant space. That helps with their learning. And we've learned, and we know that many of our students are coming to us who are a little more jumpy, a little more buzzing. And so having that opportunity to have those motor breaks to be able to engage. But we're also expanding the learning. You know, we often talk about our core learning courses, but there's so much to be said about the expanded learning that our students need around social emotional, around technology, the arts. We know what the arts do for our students. So when we have the opportunity to diversify the schedule to meet that need, students obtain more learning, and educators then have time to actually collaborate with those they need to meet the needs of our students.
Thank you so much, Delegate, and thank you to our speakers. We have the final question coming from Delegate Pastor, and it will be a short, quick question.
One question. One question.
Thank you. I got out everything I wanted to say before, almost. But I want to thank you for the things that you're saying now, particularly about collaboration, because I think there's some misunderstanding about what collaboration is. Would collaboration be more than just from someone who's passed the national board and a teacher? Could collaboration be between teacher and teacher? Can you elaborate on that just a moment? As teacher and teacher, and also sometime having other teachers come in and team teach or model. Would you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. Just one of you. We've had a lot on collaboration.
It can look a lot of different ways. We team in departments, we team vertically, we team by grade level. We'll team with anyone. So it does have a lot of different iterations. It is not one single thing.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being with us. And everyone who's been here today, it's been really instructive, and I will let our co-chair here to out.
Just a note of thanks to everyone who briefed us this morning. All of your hands and roles are critical in us achieving the goals of the blueprint. So as Mr. Leggett says, we're going to keep swimming till we reach our goal, and we've outlined those critical goals in the legislation that we passed. So thank you, colleagues, for the great questions, and we are now adjourned. Thank you.